Standing outside my childhood home on Thanksgiving morning, suitcase in hand, I never imagined my own sister would slam the door in my face. "We cannot have someone like you embarrassing us in front of Marcus' family." Vivian had sneered her designer dress a stark contrast to my work clothes. Someone like me, an HVAC technician who apparently did not meet her new boyfriend's social standards. What she did not know was that her precious graduate school tuition, her luxury lifestyle, everything she flaunted, I had been paying for it all. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama, I would love to know, are you watching from your cozy living room or maybe taking a break at work? This story has more twists than a soap opera, and trust me, you will want to stick around to see how karma serves justice on a silver platter. Hit that like button if you are ready for some serious family revenge drama, and do not forget to subscribe, because stories like this prove that sometimes the underdog gets the sweetest victory. My name is Serafina, and for 28 years I believed family meant everything. Growing up in suburban Chicago, my sister Vivian and I were inseparable, despite our 4-year age gap. Our parents died in a car accident when I was 19, and she was 15, leaving us with a modest inheritance and each other. I had been studying business at Northwestern, but I dropped out immediately to take care of her and keep us afloat financially. While Vivian grieved by throwing herself into academics and social climbing, I grieved by working. I started as an apprentice with Johnson HVAC Services, learning the trade from the ground up. The work was demanding, physically exhausting, but it paid well enough to support both of us. I told myself it was temporary, just until Vivian finished high school and could stand on her own feet. But temporary became permanent when Vivian announced she wanted to attend an expensive private college. "Serafina, this is my chance to honor Mom and Dad's memory." She had pleaded, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. They always wanted us to have the best education. How could I say no? I took out additional loans, worked overtime, and even picked up weekend emergency calls to cover her tuition at Whitmore Academy. After college, there was graduate school. Then her unpaid internship at a prestigious marketing firm. Then her investment in designer clothes for networking events. Each request came with the same emotional manipulation. Our parents would have wanted this family sticks together. She would pay me back once she landed her dream job. For 9 years, I lived in a studio apartment above a laundromat while she enjoyed a spacious condo in Lincoln Park. I drove a 15-year-old pickup truck while she leased a BMW. I ate ramen noodles for dinner while she posted Instagram photos from trendy restaurants. But I convinced myself this sacrifice had meaning. She was my baby sister, and I was honoring our parents' wishes by giving her every opportunity. The dynamic shifted dramatically when Vivian started dating Marcus Pemberton III, heir to a commercial real estate empire. Suddenly, my profession became an embarrassment. She stopped mentioning me at social gatherings. When Marcus asked about her family, she would vaguely reference a business-oriented sister without specifics. The first red flag appeared 6 months ago during a family barbecue. Marcus made a dismissive comment about blue-collar workers and their limited intellectual capacity. I watched Vivian nod along, laughing at his jokes about construction workers and plumbers. When I tried to engage him in conversation about sustainable HVAC systems and energy efficiency, Vivian quickly changed the subject. The second red flag was discovering that Vivian had been lying about her job. While she claimed to work for a high-end marketing firm, I learned through mutual acquaintances that she was actually unemployed, spending her days shopping and attending yoga classes. When I confronted her about it, she became defensive. Marcus does not need to know every detail about our situation, she had snapped. Some things are private. Besides, I am networking and building connections. That is more valuable than any traditional job. The final straw came 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, when I accidentally saw a text message on her phone while helping her move furniture. It was from Marcus. Make sure your sister does not come to Thanksgiving. My parents will be there, and we cannot have any awkward explanations about family backgrounds. Her response broke my heart. Do not worry. I will handle it. She understands her place. That night I went home and pulled out every financial record from the past 9 years. Student loan payments, rent assistance car payments, credit card bills I had covered when she overspent. The total was staggering. $87,000. Nearly $90,000 I had given her, sacrificing my own dreams, my own future, my own happiness. But the real betrayal was not financial. It was emotional. While I had been working 60-hour weeks, skipping meals, and living paycheck to support her dreams, she had been systematically erasing me from her life. I was good enough to fund her lifestyle, but not good enough to acknowledge publicly. The week before Thanksgiving, I decided to test her. I called and asked if I could bring anything to dinner, mentioned that I was excited to meet Marcus' parents properly. Her response was cold and calculated. Actually, Serafina, I think it might be better if you skip this year. Marcus' family is very traditional, and they might not understand our diverse family situation. Maybe we can celebrate together another time, just the two of us. Diverse family situation. As if my honest work somehow made me a liability. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called the student loan company and requested a detailed payment history. Then I contacted my bank and gathered records of every transfer I had made to Vivian over the years. Wire transfers, check deposits, direct payments to her landlord. I documented everything. But I also did something else. I hired a private investigator named Detective Rodriguez, a former cop who specialized in financial fraud cases. Something about Vivian's behavior felt wrong beyond simple embarrassment. Her expensive lifestyle, her vague explanations about money, her reluctance to discuss her job situation, it all pointed to something more complicated than unemployment. In my experience, Rodriguez told me during our first meeting, when someone lives beyond their means while hiding their income sources, there is usually another revenue stream. Could be anything from credit card fraud, to identity theft, to more sophisticated scams. Give me 2 weeks. As I sat in my cramped apartment that night, surrounded by financial records and growing suspicion, I realized this was about more than hurt feelings or family embarrassment. This was about justice. If Vivian wanted to treat me like a stranger, perhaps it was time she learned what life looked like without my support. The Thanksgiving confrontation was just the beginning. What I discovered in the following days would expose a web of deception, fraud, and manipulation that went far beyond anything I could have imagined. Standing on that porch, suitcase still in hand, I felt something inside me shift permanently. The humiliation of being turned away from my own family home, the sound of Vivian's voice explaining to someone inside that the service person had been handled. It crystallized 9 years of mounting resentment into cold, calculated fury. But I did not cause a scene. Instead, I smiled sweetly at my sister and said, "Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, Vivian. I hope Marcus' parents enjoy meeting your authentic self." The confusion that flickered across her face was deeply satisfying. I drove straight to Detective Rodriguez's office. "I need those results now," I told him, "and I need them to be thorough." What Rodriguez had discovered was even more shocking than I had anticipated. Vivian was not simply unemployed. She was running an elaborate social media scam. Using fake credentials and stolen photos, she had created multiple online personas selling luxury lifestyle coaching to vulnerable women desperate for social status. She charged $500 for personal branding consultations and $2,000 for elite networking packages that consisted of nothing more than generic advice copied from free articles. Your sister has at least 12 different PayPal accounts under various names, Rodriguez explained, spreading the evidence across his desk. She has been operating this scam for almost 2 years. Based on these transaction records, she has defrauded approximately 43 women out of roughly $65,000. The irony was devastating. While I had been working honest, backbreaking labor to support her lifestyle, she had been stealing from other hardworking women who trusted her fabricated expertise. But Rodriguez had uncovered something even more disturbing. She has also been using your financial support as social proof, he continued. Look at these screenshots from her Instagram and LinkedIn profiles. I stared at the evidence in disbelief. Vivian had been posting photos of herself in the condo I helped pay for, driving the car I made payments on, wearing clothes I had funded, all while claiming to be a self-made entrepreneur who had bootstrapped her way to success through determination and smart financial planning. She had literally been using my sacrifice as marketing material to scam other women. There is more, Rodriguez said grimly. She has been telling her coaching clients that she can provide them with personal recommendations for investment opportunities through her business connections. 3 women have already sent her money for fake investment schemes that do not exist. Investment fraud. My baby sister, the girl I had raised and supported, was not just a liar and a manipulator. She was a criminal. That evening, I sat in my truck outside her building and made a series of phone calls that would change everything. First, I called the FBI Financial Crimes Unit and submitted a formal complaint with all of Rodriguez's evidence. Then I called each of the 3 major credit bureaus and placed fraud alerts on both our names. If Vivian was comfortable stealing from strangers, I needed to protect myself from identity theft. But my most important call was to Marcus. "Hello, this is Serafina, Vivian's sister," I said when he answered. "I believe we need to talk before your relationship goes any further. Are you free for coffee tomorrow morning?" The meeting with Marcus was surreal. He arrived at the upscale cafe dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, looking every inch the entitled heir I had expected. But as I laid out the evidence of Vivian financial fraud, her lies about her employment, and the truth about who had been funding her lifestyle, I watched his composure crumble. "You are telling me that Vivian has been lying about having a job?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Marcus, she has not had legitimate employment since graduation. Every dollar she has spent on rent, clothes, car payments, even the engagement ring she probably showed your parents, it has all been funded either by money I worked for or money she stole from other women." I showed him the bank records, the student loan payments, the evidence of the coaching scam. His face grew paler with each revelation. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally. "Because yesterday she kicked me out of Thanksgiving dinner, because my job was too embarrassing for your family. She called me a service person and told your parents I was not worth acknowledging. So I thought you deserved to know exactly who you are planning to marry." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the evidence. Then he looked up at me with something that might have been respect. "My parents spent yesterday evening discussing Vivian's business acumen and financial independence. She told them she built her marketing consulting company from the ground up and that she specializes in helping women achieve professional success. Every word of that is a lie. What do you want me to do with this information?" It was a fair question, and I had already decided on my answer. Nothing initially. I just wanted you to know the truth. What you do with it is entirely up to you. But Marcus, if you are planning a future with someone, do not you think you deserve to know who they really are? He left the cafe without another word, but I could see the wheels turning. Marcus had grown up in a world where reputation and integrity mattered more than money. Learning that his fiancée was not only a fraud, but an active criminal, would not sit well with someone from his background. That afternoon, I took the most difficult step of all. I called Vivian. "I know about the coaching scam," I said without preamble. "I know about the fake investment opportunities, the stolen photos, the lies you have been telling Marcus' family about your success. I know everything." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I have already filed a complaint with the FBI," I continued. "But I wanted to give you one opportunity to do the right thing. You have 24 hours to contact every woman you have defrauded and arrange full refunds. If you do that, and if you publicly admit to Marcus and his family that you have been lying about your career and financial situation, I might consider asking the FBI to treat this as restitution rather than prosecution." "You would not dare," she whispered, but I could hear the fear in her voice. "Vivian, you kicked me out of my own family home because you were embarrassed by honest work. You have stolen money from women who trusted you. You have built your entire relationship with Marcus on lies. The question is not whether I would dare. The question is whether you have any honor left to do the right thing." I hung up and waited. 24 hours to see if 9 years of sacrifice had meant anything to her at all. The next 24 hours passed with agonizing slowness. I threw myself into work, taking every emergency call and overtime shift available, partly to keep busy, and partly because I needed the distraction. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be Vivian calling to negotiate or explain or perhaps even apologize. But she remained completely silent. What I did not expect was the call I received at 6 in the morning on Saturday from an unknown number. "Is this Serafina?" "This is Marcus Pemberton. We need to talk again. Something has happened." We met at the same cafe, but this time Marcus looked haggard, like he had not slept at all. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfect hair was disheveled. "She is gone," he said without preamble. "Vivian packed up and disappeared sometime during the night. Her apartment is empty. Her car is missing, and she is not answering any calls." My stomach dropped. "What happened after we talked yesterday?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling with what to tell me. "I confronted her last night after dinner with my parents. I showed her the evidence you gave me and asked her to explain. At first, she denied everything, said you were jealous and trying to sabotage our relationship because you could not accept her success. But you did not believe that." "No. The evidence was too detailed, too documented. So I kept pressing, and finally she broke down and admitted to the coaching scam. She said it started small, just a few $100s here and there, and then it grew into something she could not control." I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that she had finally told the truth, dread about what might come next. "But that is not the worst part," Marcus continued. "When I told her she needed to contact the FBI and arrange restitution for the women she defrauded, she became different. Cold. Calculating. She told me that if I tried to expose her, she would claim that I was involved in the scam, that I had been helping her target wealthy women through my family connections. Now I understood why Marcus looked so shaken. Vivian had revealed herself to be more than just a liar and a thief. She was willing to destroy innocent people to protect herself. "There is something else," Marcus said quietly. "After she threatened me, I called my father. He runs background checks on anyone who gets seriously involved with family members. It is just standard practice in our situation. The investigator my father hired discovered that your sister has been doing this longer than 2 years." He pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. "She has been running variations of this scam since college. Different names, different cities, always targeting women in transition periods. Divorces, career changes, empty nesters. She would study their social media, learn their vulnerabilities, and then position herself as the successful woman they wanted to become." The folder contained evidence of at least 6 different schemes across 4 states. Fake business partnerships, fraudulent investment advice, even a bogus charity for empowering women entrepreneurs that she had used to steal donations meant for legitimate organizations. "Marcus, this means she was already running scams when I was supporting her through graduate school. She was never planning to get a legitimate job. She was always planning to be a criminal." It gets worse. The investigator found evidence that she has been researching my family financial situation, our business holdings, our investment strategies. She was not just dating me. She was conducting surveillance. The realization hit us both simultaneously. If Vivian was willing to disappear rather than face consequences, and if she had been systematically researching wealthy families, she was probably already planning her next target. "We need to warn people," I said. "Other families, other potential victims." That afternoon, we formed an unlikely alliance. Marcus used his family connections to alert other prominent families in Chicago about Vivian methods, while I worked with Detective Rodriguez to track down as many of her previous victims as possible. What we discovered was heartbreaking. Women who had lost their life savings trusting Vivian fake investment advice. Small business owners who had paid her thousands of dollars for marketing strategies that consisted of plagiarized blog posts. A 60-year-old widow who had given Vivian $15,000 for a business partnership that never existed. One victim, a woman named Patricia Henley, agreed to meet with us. She had lost $8,000 to one of Vivian's earlier scams in Milwaukee money she had saved for her daughter's college tuition. She was so convincing. Patricia told us, tears in her eyes. She knew exactly what to say to make me believe I could turn my small catering business into something bigger. She talked about female empowerment and supporting other women, and I thought I was finally going to break through to real success. Patricia's story was especially devastating because it revealed Vivian's sophisticated manipulation techniques. She had spent weeks building a relationship with Patricia, learning about her dreams, her financial struggles, her daughter's college aspirations. Then she had crafted a personalized scam that exploited every vulnerability. "The worst part," Patricia continued, "is that when I realized it was fraud and tried to contact her, she sent me a message saying that unsuccessful people always blame others for their failures. She made me feel like I was the problem for trusting her." As we gathered more victim testimonies, a pattern emerged. Vivian did not just steal money. She systematically destroyed her victims' self-confidence and sense of judgment. She convinced them that their failure to achieve success through her programs was evidence of their own inadequacy, rather than her deception. By Sunday evening, Marcus and I had compiled evidence of fraud spanning 7 years and affecting at least 63 victims across multiple states. The total amount stolen exceeded $150,000. "We need to get this to the FBI immediately," Marcus said as we reviewed the massive collection of evidence. But we also need to prepare for the possibility that she has already started her next scam somewhere else. That night, I made a decision that surprised even myself. I called my supervisor at Johnson HVAC and requested a week of unpaid leave. I need to finish something important, I told him. Something related to family. The next morning, Marcus and I drove to the FBI field office in downtown Chicago. Agent Sarah Mitchell, the financial crimes specialist assigned to the case, reviewed our evidence with growing amazement. This is one of the most comprehensive victim impact cases I have seen in a long time, she told us. Your sister was not just running individual scams. She was operating a systematic criminal enterprise. This moves her from simple fraud into organized crime territory. Agent Mitchell explained that the multi-state nature of Vivian crimes meant the case would likely be handled at the federal level with potential charges including wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The challenge now is finding her, Mitchell said. Someone with this level of sophistication in identity manipulation could easily disappear for months or years. But the evidence you have provided gives us a strong foundation for prosecution when we do locate her. As we left the FBI office, Marcus turned to me with an expression I could not quite read. Serafina, I owe you an apology. When Vivian told me about her family situation, she painted you as someone who was limiting her potential. She said you did not understand ambition or success, and that your relationship held her back from achieving her goals. The irony was stunning. While I had been working multiple jobs to fund her lifestyle, she had been telling her boyfriend that I was the obstacle to her success. She also told me that you resented her education and career prospects because you had dropped out of college. She said you were bitter about your own choices and took it out on her achievements. Every revelation cut deeper. Not only had Vivian been stealing from innocent women while I supported her financially, she had been actively undermining my reputation to justify her treatment of me. But something else was happening. As Marcus and I worked together to build the case against Vivian, I began to see him as more than just the privileged heir I had initially judged him to be. His dedication to helping her victims, his willingness to risk his family reputation, to expose the truth, his genuine remorse about how he had initially dismissed me. It all painted a picture of someone with real integrity. The alliance we had formed was about to face its biggest test. 3 days after filing the comprehensive FBI report, I received a call that shattered my newfound sense of justice and hope. It was Agent Mitchell, and her voice carried a tension I had not heard before. Serafina, we need to meet immediately. There has been a development in your sister's case that you need to know about. Marcus and I met Agent Mitchell at a small diner away from the federal building. Her expression was grim as she slid a manila envelope across the table. We received a counter-complaint yesterday, she said quietly. Someone has filed charges against you for harassment, stalking, and filing false police reports. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? According to the complaint, you have been systematically harassing your sister for years, attempting to sabotage her legitimate business relationships and fabricating evidence to destroy her reputation out of jealousy and resentment. I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The complaint was detailed, professional, and devastating. It claimed that I had been emotionally and financially abusive toward Vivian since our parents' death, using my role as her guardian to control and manipulate her. It alleged that when she finally achieved independence and success, I had launched a vindictive campaign to destroy her happiness. But the most shocking part was not the false allegations. It was the signature at the bottom of the complaint. Marcus Pemberton III. I looked up at Marcus, who was staring at the document with what appeared to be genuine confusion. "I never signed this," he said quietly. "I never filed any complaint against you." Agent Mitchell's expression was carefully neutral. "The complaint was filed by Marcus Pemberton III yesterday afternoon, accompanied by sworn statements from several witnesses who claim to have observed Serafina's harassment behavior over the past several months." "That is impossible," Marcus said firmly. "I was in meetings with my family's legal team all day yesterday discussing how to protect other potential victims. I never went near a courthouse or signed anything related to Serafina." But as Agent Mitchell spread more documents across the table, the devastating scope of the setup became clear. Someone had forged Marcus's signature on multiple legal documents. Someone had created fake witness statements from people who claimed to know me, but whose names I did not recognize. Someone had even produced photographs that appeared to show me following Vivian around the city, though I knew I had never been to most of the locations pictured. "There is more," Agent Mitchell said reluctantly. "The person who filed this complaint provided bank records that appear to show you have been embezzling money from your employer to fund this harassment campaign. According to these documents, you have been overcharging customers and pocketing the difference to pay for private investigators and legal fees." The room began to spin. Someone had not only framed me for harassment and stalking, but had also fabricated evidence of embezzlement that could destroy my career and land me in prison. "These records are completely fabricated," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I have never stolen money from my employer or my customers. I have never harassed anyone." Marcus reached across the table and took the bank documents from my hands. As he studied them, his expression grew increasingly angry. "These account numbers do not match Marcus's actual banking information," he said firmly. "I have been managing my own finances since college. These documents are forgeries." But Agent Mitchell's next revelations stopped us both cold. The person who filed this complaint also provided recordings, she said, pulling out a small digital device. Audio recordings of conversations that allegedly took place between Serafina and Marcus discussing plans to frame Vivian for financial crimes she did not commit. She pressed play and my own voice filled the small diner booth. "If we can make it look like she is running scams, we can destroy her credibility completely. Marcus, your family connections will make this so much easier." Marcus's voice responded, "I do not care what it takes. She embarrassed my family and she needs to pay for that. Let us fabricate whatever evidence we need." I stared at the device in horror. The voices were unmistakably ours, but neither of us had ever had that conversation. The technology to create such realistic fake audio was becoming more sophisticated, but hearing my own voice plotting to frame my sister for crimes she had actually committed felt like living in a nightmare. "This is impossible," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "We never had this conversation. Someone has manipulated audio recordings to create false evidence." But I could see doubt creeping into Agent Mitchell's eyes. The fabricated evidence was extensive, professional, and disturbingly convincing. Multiple documents, witness statements, bank records, and now audio recordings. It painted a picture of an elaborate conspiracy to frame an innocent woman. "Agent Mitchell," I said carefully, "3 days ago you reviewed extensive evidence of my sister's criminal activity spanning 7 years and affecting dozens of victims. Are you now suggesting that I somehow fabricated all of that evidence, manipulated multiple victim testimonies, and created false bank records dating back to when I was barely out of high school? The complaint alleges that you have been planning this frame-up for years, systematically building false evidence while pretending to support your sister financially. The brilliance of the setup was terrifying. Someone had taken the real evidence of Vivian's crimes and twisted it into proof of my supposed obsession and vindictiveness. Every document that showed her guilt had been reframed as evidence of my elaborate deception. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is insane. Agent Mitchell, you have seen the victim testimonies. You have spoken to women who lost their life savings to Vivian's scams. Are you seriously suggesting that Serafina somehow convinced dozens of women across multiple states to lie about being defrauded? The complaint suggests that you paid these women to provide false testimonies as part of your harassment campaign." I felt the walls closing in. Someone had anticipated every piece of evidence we had gathered and created a counter-narrative that made me look like the criminal. The sophistication required for this level of manipulation suggested resources and connections far beyond what Vivian could have managed alone. "Who filed this complaint?" I asked quietly. "If it was not Marcus, then who signed his name and provided all this fabricated evidence?" Agent Mitchell hesitated before answering. "The complaint was filed by Marcus Pemberton III, but it was delivered to our office by someone claiming to be his legal representative. A lawyer named David Ashton from Ashton, Beck and Associates." Marcus's face went white. "David Ashton is my family's attorney, but I never authorized him to file anything on my behalf. If he submitted this complaint, he was acting without my knowledge or consent." The betrayal was stunning. Not only had someone framed me for crimes I did not commit, but they had used Marcus's own family lawyer to do it. This was not just about destroying me. It was about destroying both of us while protecting Vivian from the consequences of her actions. As we sat in that diner booth surrounded by false evidence and fabricated testimonies, I realized that we were facing an enemy far more dangerous and well-connected than we had imagined. Someone with access to legal resources technology and connections was systematically dismantling our case while building a criminal case against us. The question was no longer whether we could bring Vivian to justice. The question was whether we could prove our own innocence before we ended up in prison for crimes we had never committed. The next 48 hours were the darkest of my life. I was placed on administrative leave from Johnson HVAC pending the investigation into the embezzlement allegations. My supervisor, Mike Rodriguez, delivered the news with genuine sadness in his eyes. "Serafina, I have known you for 9 years. He said quietly in his office. "You are one of the most honest people I have ever worked with. But these allegations are serious, and the company has to protect itself until this gets resolved." I understood, but it still felt like another piece of my identity being stripped away. My work had been my anchor, my source of pride and stability. Now even that was threatened by whoever was orchestrating this elaborate frame-up. Marcus was facing his own crisis. When news of the legal complaint reached his family, they immediately distanced themselves from him, believing he had become involved in some kind of vindictive scheme against his ex-fiancée. His father, Marcus Pemberton Jr., had frozen his access to family accounts and threatened to cut him out of the business entirely if the scandal continued to escalate. "They think I have lost my mind," Marcus told me during one of our daily strategy meetings at the diner. "My father cannot understand why I would risk everything to help someone he barely knows, expose someone he barely knows. From his perspective, it looks like I have become obsessed with destroying Vivian for personal reasons." But our breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Patricia Henley, the Milwaukee widow, who had lost $8,000 to one of Vivian's earlier scams, called me directly with information that would change everything. Serafina. I have been thinking about your situation and something occurred to me, she said during our phone conversation. When I was trying to recover my money from your sister, I hired a lawyer to help me pursue the case. He told me something interesting about how these kinds of scams usually work. Patricia's lawyer had explained that sophisticated fraud operations rarely work alone. They typically involve networks of enablers, lawyers who provide legal protection, accountants who launder money, and technology specialists who create false identities and fake evidence. He said that when fraud cases suddenly disappear or get turned around on the investigators, it usually means the criminal has connections to people who can manipulate the legal system itself. The implication was staggering. If Vivian had allies within the legal community, it would explain how someone had been able to forge Marcus's signature on legal documents and use his family's attorney to file false charges against me. There is something else, Patricia continued. I still have email communications with your sister from when she was scamming me. In one of them, she mentioned having a business partner who helped her with legal and technical challenges. She never gave a name, but she said this person was someone who understood how to navigate complex situations. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that would prove crucial. Instead of trying to work through his family's compromised legal team, he contacted someone completely outside their usual circle. A federal public defender named Jennifer Walsh, who specialized in cases involving legal system manipulation. Jennifer Walsh was nothing like the polished corporate attorneys Marcus' family typically employed. She was direct, skeptical, and completely unimpressed by wealth or social status. When Marcus and I met with her in her cramped downtown office, she listened to our story with the sharp attention of someone who had seen every kind of deception. This case has all the hallmarks of legal system abuse, she said after reviewing our evidence. Someone with access to insider information has been using legitimate legal channels to commit crimes while framing the actual investigators. But there is good news. This kind of operation usually leaves digital fingerprints. Jennifer had connections within the federal cybercrime unit that Agent Mitchell did not. Within 24 hours, she had arranged for a full forensic analysis of all the digital evidence in our case: the fake bank records, the manipulated audio recordings, and the forged legal documents. The results were devastating for whoever had been framing us. The forensic analysis revealed that all the fabricated evidence had been created using the same sophisticated software package generated from computers that shared the same network infrastructure. More importantly, the metadata from the fake audio recordings showed that they had been created using voice samples extracted from legitimate phone conversations that had been illegally recorded. Someone has been conducting surveillance on both of you for weeks, possibly months, Jennifer explained. They recorded your actual conversations, then used voice synthesis technology to create fake conversations that never happened. But the most shocking discovery came when the cybercrime unit traced the network infrastructure used to create the false evidence. The computers belonged to Ashton Beck and Associates, Marcus family's law firm. This means someone within your family's legal team has been working with your sister to frame both of you, Jennifer told Marcus. They have been using their legitimate access to legal resources to commit crimes while hiding behind attorney-client privilege. The investigation into Ashton Beck and Associates revealed a stunning conspiracy. David Ashton, the senior partner who had filed the false complaint against me, had been secretly representing Vivian for over a year. Using information gained from his work with the Pemberton family, he had helped her identify and target wealthy families across the Midwest. But Ashton's involvement went far beyond simple legal representation. The cybercrime unit discovered that he had been using his firm's resources to help Vivian create false identities, launder money through offshore accounts, and eliminate evidence of her crimes. When Marcus and I had begun investigating Vivian's scams, Ashton had orchestrated the elaborate frame-up to protect both his client and himself. David Ashton was not just enabling your sister's crimes, Jennifer explained. He was actively profiting from them. Bank records show that he received a percentage of every successful scam disguised as legal fees for business consulting services. The scope of the conspiracy was breathtaking. Ashton had used his position as a respected attorney to provide criminal enterprises with legal legitimacy, while using his access to wealthy clients to identify potential victims. He had turned his law practice into a criminal organization, while hiding behind the respectability of his profession. With this new evidence, Jennifer filed an emergency motion to dismiss all charges against me and to launch a federal investigation into Ashton Beck and Associates. She also requested protective custody for both Marcus and me, arguing that we were witnesses to a criminal conspiracy that involved people with significant resources and connections. The good news is that we now have proof of your innocence, Jennifer told us. The bad news is that we are dealing with people who have been using the legal system itself as a weapon. Until we can get them into custody, you are both still at risk. That night, as I sat in a federal safe house waiting for the investigation to unfold, I reflected on how drastically my life had changed in just 2 weeks. I had gone from being a simple HVAC technician dealing with family embarrassment to being a federal witness in a major conspiracy case. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt hopeful. The truth was finally coming to light, and the people who had tried to destroy my life were about to face justice. The final phase of our nightmare unfolded with stunning speed once federal investigators had the evidence they needed. Within 72 hours of Jennifer Walsh's emergency filing, the entire conspiracy began to collapse like a house of cards. David Ashton was arrested at his law firm on a Tuesday morning, charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, obstruction of justice, and abuse of legal process. The FBI raid on his offices uncovered a treasure trove of evidence, detailed records of dozens of victims' offshore account information, and a sophisticated identity theft operation that had been running for over 5 years. But the most satisfying moment came when federal agents tracked down Vivian in Miami, where she had been setting up her next elaborate scam. She had been posing as a successful investment advisor, targeting recently divorced women with significant divorce settlements. When they arrested her at an expensive restaurant where she was meeting her newest potential victim, she was carrying fake business cards, forged financial documents, and a detailed dossier on the woman she was planning to defraud. The charges against my sister were extensive: wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and aggravated identity theft. With Ashton's records providing detailed evidence of her crimes dating back 7 years, she faced the possibility of spending the next 20 years in federal prison. Marcus and I were completely exonerated. Agent Mitchell personally delivered the news along with a formal apology from the FBI for the distress we had endured during the investigation. "I want you to know that your persistence and integrity made this case possible," she told us. "Without your willingness to pursue the truth despite significant personal risk, dozens of victims would never have received justice, and a sophisticated criminal operation would have continued destroying lives." The victim restitution process was extensive but deeply satisfying. With Ashton's detailed records, federal investigators were able to identify and contact 67 women who had been defrauded over the years. While the money Vivian had stolen was largely gone, the criminal asset forfeiture process recovered nearly 40% of the stolen funds, and several victims successfully sued Ashton's law firm for damages. Patricia Henley got back $6,000 of the $8,000 she had lost, enough to restore most of her daughter's college fund. More importantly, she told me that learning the truth about the scam had restored her faith in her own judgment. For 2 years, I believed I was just too stupid to succeed in business, she said during our final phone conversation. Learning that I was the victim of a sophisticated criminal operation helped me understand that my failure was not about my abilities. It was about someone else's evil choices. My relationship with work underwent a complete transformation. Johnson HVAC not only reinstated me with full back pay and a formal apology, but Mike Rodriguez offered me a promotion to senior technician with a significant salary increase. Serafina, what you went through showed a level of integrity and determination that this company values above everything else, he told me. We want to make sure you know how much we appreciate having you on our team. But the most unexpected development was how my relationship with Marcus evolved. What had started as an alliance born of necessity grew into something much deeper and more meaningful. During the long hours we spent building our case, fighting for our reputations, and supporting each other through the darkest moments, we discovered a genuine connection based on shared values and mutual respect. I owe you more than an apology, Marcus told me 6 months after Vivian's sentencing. We were sitting in the same cafe where we had first met to discuss the evidence against my sister. But this time, the conversation was entirely different. When I first met you, I saw exactly what your sister wanted me to see. Someone whose work was somehow less valuable than her supposed achievements. It took almost losing everything to realize that integrity, honesty, and genuine accomplishment matter more than social status or inherited wealth. Marcus had used the crisis to completely reevaluate his relationship with his family's business and values. He enrolled in a community college program to learn practical skills, started volunteering with organizations that helped fraud victims, and eventually convinced his family to establish a foundation dedicated to supporting women who had been financially exploited. My parents finally understand that you saved our family from a much worse scandal, he explained. If we had married Vivian without knowing the truth, she could have destroyed everything my grandparents built. Our relationship developed slowly, built on the foundation of trust and respect that had carried us through the crisis. We took time to heal from the trauma, to rebuild our individual lives, and to make sure that our feelings for each other were genuine, rather than simply gratitude or shared survival. 2 years later, Marcus proposed during a quiet dinner at the same diner where we had received some of our darkest news. The ring was simple, elegant, and purchased entirely with money he had earned from his new job managing the family foundation. I want to build a life with someone whose values I admire and whose strength I respect, he said as he got down on one knee. I want to build something real with you. Our wedding was small, intimate, and focused on the chosen family we had created through our shared experience. Patricia Henley attended along with several other fraud victims who had become friends and allies. Jennifer Walsh officiated the ceremony, and Mike Rodriguez walked me down the aisle. Vivian did not attend, obviously. She was serving a 15-year sentence at a federal facility in Ohio. I had chosen not to maintain any contact with her, a decision that had taken considerable therapy to reach. I learned that loving someone does not require accepting their abuse. and that family is defined by choice and behavior rather than blood relation. The foundation Marcus and I eventually established together has helped over 200 fraud victims recover financially and emotionally from their experiences. We work specifically with women who have been targeted by sophisticated financial manipulation, providing both practical assistance and emotional support. Our work has taught us that financial fraud is never just about money. It is about the systematic destruction of trust, confidence, and self-worth. Helping victims rebuild those qualities has become our shared mission and the foundation of our marriage. Looking back on that Thanksgiving morning when I stood on my childhood porch with a suitcase in my hand, I never could have imagined that my sister's cruelty would ultimately lead to such profound, positive change in my life. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals force us to discover strengths we never knew we possessed, and to build relationships based on genuine respect rather than obligation. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's betrayal actually led to discovering who your real family truly is? I would love to hear your thoughts about how we choose the people who matter most in our lives. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear that justice sometimes takes time, but it does arrive. Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and finding your chosen family. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that sometimes the most honest work leads to the most honest relationships.